Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa, your host for the GrowCast show, and we're on episode 90. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and his name is Kian Ang. He's a Senior Associate Director at PropNex. Hi, Kian. Nice to have you on the show.
Hello. Hi.
What does being better than normal mean to you?
To me, being better than normal means showing up with clarity, intention, and purpose, not just to show up at work, but also at life. Because as a husband and father, it's about making thoughtful decisions about the people I care about and not just about myself. As a realtor, it means creating value beyond transaction. So going beyond what's expected for my clients, offering honest guidance and helping clients make future-ready choices. Ultimately, it's about making smart decisions that lead to a better tomorrow.
And what makes you better than normal?
What sets me apart is the ability to combine empathy with strategic clarity. Most of the time, I take my time to truly understand my client's goals and then apply the D.R.E.A.M framework that I've come up with and then to turn complex decisions into a clear future-ready plan so that it can help them to avoid costly pitfalls in the future. Because having walked this journey myself, I bring both personal experience and professional discipline to every client relationship to guide with insight, care, and purpose.
So you mentioned creating a unique D.R.E.A.M framework for your real estate clients. Can you please explain what it's about and who you designed it for?
Absolutely. So this is the ebook that I've come up with. It's a secret roadmap to owning 2 properties. It's meant for couples who want to move beyond owning just a single home and aspire to own 2 private properties in the future. This is to enable them to build long-term wealth and give them financial flexibility for the future. So it's a structured 5-step approach that guides couples through key decisions at every stage of their property journey. We have discovered and defined goals to help couples align as a team, clarifying the short-term housing needs with their long-term goals like passive income, legacy building, retirement planning. For R, we have review finances. So I'll personally come down to assess their affordability, things like CPF usage, loan eligibility, to align it with their life stages like MOP timelines, their career transitions, or maybe their kids' education milestones. For E, we have a very important facet of the framework, which is essential empowerment, empowering my clients with crucial knowledge, things like how to structure the ownership, understanding the different market trends, choosing the right project or unit, and most importantly, you have to plan strategically effective exits. For A, we have act and avoid pitfalls. We guide them to execute the strategies wisely to avoid common missteps like CPF allocation mistakes, decoupling mistakes, or ownership structures that can limit their future options. And lastly, M, which is to multiply net worth. Use the strategies like part share ownership, property repositioning, or rental income to grow the assets sustainably over time. So end of the day, it's a practical and proven framework that empowers couples to make future-ready decisions so that they're not just buying a property, but actually building a smart and resilient future together.
Great. So, Kian, has there been a standout case where you applied the D.R.E.A.M framework successfully for a client?
Yes. There was this couple in their 30s who came to me upon MOP of their BTO. So their initial plan was to sell and jointly buy a private property. But after going through the D.R.E.A.M framework, we actually uncovered a smarter path. We realized that they actually have a potential for each of them to own a private property individually. So we kickstarted the whole process by unlocking the funds first through the sale of their BTO, which I sold at around a record price at that time. And then instead of rushing into a joint purchase, we actually used the sales proceeds alone to help them buy a resale private property for their own stay, all without touching the savings. So after that, with careful selection, we then succeeded at balloting for a new launch project, investment unit under the wife's name, at the now fully sold out new launch project. So fast forward 2 years to right now, both properties have already appreciated a strong 6-figure value. So in contrast, their old BTO have only appreciated by about 27,000 over the same period. So they have since told me that they're very grateful with the framework for giving them the clarity and confidence to take the bold but well-informed step forward.
What do you think is the earliest age that Singaporeans should start their real estate journey?
There's a saying that goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So it applies perfectly to real estate as well. Ideally, planning should begin the moment you land your first full-time job. Not necessary to buy right away, but to understand how certain things work, like how CPF works, loan tenures, and how property appreciation goes. So these are all long games, and time is definitely your greatest advantage when it comes to this. By around age 28 to 30, you should already have some sort of a clear plan in motion, even if it begins with a HDB. So every smart property move compounds. So the earlier that you start, the more flexibility and the more options you have in the future.
If I want to take my first step towards owning a private property, do I have to sell my HDB flat?
Not always the case, but for most people, yes. The main reasons are things like affordability and especially for additional buyer stamp duty. If you still own a HDB, right, buying a private property means paying an additional percentage for additional buyer stamp duty, which is ABSD on it. Unless you have a lot of spare cash or CPF, it usually makes more sense to sell the HDB first, especially if you can unlock like good profits from your first BTO and then use that as a leverage to buy your first private property. So from there, if you structure things right, you can actually plan to eventually own two private properties without paying extra taxes. So that's the kind of strategy that I try to guide couples through in a dream session. It's about looking beyond the next step and planning for long-term clarity.
Are ECs classified as HDBs since they appear to follow some HDB-like rules?
It's really a mix of both, I guess, because ECs, they actually start off with HDB-style rules. They have things like income ceilings, CPF grants, and as well as a 5-year minimum occupation period, which is the MOP. So after 5 years, you can actually sell them to Singaporeans or PRs. And after 10 years, you can actually sell them to anyone. So they will actually become fully privatized just like any other condo. But there's one thing that many people tend to overlook is that if you're buying a new launch EC, your loan is actually based off the mortgage servicing ratio, which is the MSR, which caps how much you can borrow. But after 5-year MOP, when it comes to becomes a resale EC, the total debt servicing ratio, TDSR, is actually used instead. And what does that actually mean? It actually means that you can actually borrow a lot more, sometimes even double that of what a MSR-based loan can give you. So ECs are like a unique in between. They actually start off with HDB rules and eventually after the 10-year mark, they become full-fledged private properties.
What would you recommend, a newly launched executive condo or a private condo?
I guess it really depends on your goals and time horizon. End of the day, first we need to check if you're eligible to buy an EC. If you are, and then we have to look at your budget. If budget is a concern, and definitely if you are able to hold on for at least 5 years, a new EC actually offers great value because they usually comes in with a lower entry price, accessibility to certain CPF grants, as well as a strong appreciation potential after it reaches a 5-year MOP mark. But if your goal is to actually build a portfolio quickly, a private condo actually offers more flexibility. Why so? Because you can actually sell it after 3 years without paying any seller stamp duty, to avoid the 5-year lock-in that an EC usually requires you to. And then that allows you to recycle your capital faster. So in my dream framework, we always weigh these choices based on timeline, holding period, as well as your long-term wealth goals.
Is purchasing a private property near a prestigious primary school really a good idea?
It can be, but only if the fundamentals are strong. Proximity to a top school definitely can drive demand, especially from families in the future, but it's not a guaranteed win. So what we need to do is we need to check overpaying for just a 1 kilometer advantage without considering things like layout, facing, pricing, as well as future resale potential can potentially backfire in the future. So a well-located unit definitely still needs to check the right boxes to make sense as a performing asset. Always buy with the end in mind and not just for enrollment.
On the topic of primary schools, What do you think a young family should consider if they plan to use a new launch condo's address to register their child for a nearby primary school?
Besides the usual 1 kilometer radius and the 30-month minimum stay period requirement, there's actually one crucial detail, which is the primary one registration window. So every new launch project has a notice of vacant possession date, which is the NOVP, stated clearly. So it must fall within 2 years of your child's P1 admission date. So what does that mean? For example, if your child is entering P1 in January 2026, it means that the NOVP date must not be later than December 2027. So if the date falls slightly outside the window, you can appeal to MOE, but it's on a case-by-case basis, so success is not guaranteed. So end of the day, timing matters a lot.
So recently, there have been a couple of cases making headlines of people abusing the infamous 991 strategy and using it to avoid ABSD. What was that all about? Because the only 991 I know is like police number.
Yeah, so the recent 991 headlines that you saw in the CNA article actually refers to a two-step transaction process where a property is first bought under one owner, one name, where the owner does not own any existing private property. And then immediately after buying it, 1% is then transferred or sold to someone else who already owns a property. So why do they do this? Because they do this usually is in order to boost their loan eligibility while minimizing ABSD payment. So IRAs actually treat this as a form of tax avoidance. So if the intent is found out that you are using it to dodge ABSD, then IRAs will not hesitate to prosecute you. So that's why in my dream framework, we actually emphasize on proper planning and compliance and not shortcuts that can backfire in the future.
What about decoupling? What are 3 key factors to evaluate before proceeding with property decoupling?
The first factor definitely is to check for your loan eligibility. We need to check whether can one party take over the full share of the unit and qualify as the sole borrower. Secondly, we need to take note of things like CPF refund and accrued interest, because the selling party must actually refund back all the CPF that he's used, as well as the accrued interest, and this is usually in cash. Thirdly, we need to check on the time and holding period, whether has 3 years passed, because we need to check whether they would be taxed by the seller's stamp duty. So if not, seller's stamp duty may apply, and some may choose to proceed anyway, definitely. But we need to check whether the cost is manageable enough for them to go ahead with it. So in my dream framework, this actually falls under the A section, which is act and avoid pitfalls, where we try to guide clients to make clear, informed choices to avoid this kind of costly traps.
Have you seen a case where a couple decoupled and it backfired?
Definitely. I've seen couples where they proceed to decouple and then only to realize that they actually couldn't qualify for the new loan, or that the CPF refunds actually wipe out their cash savings. So what happens was they got stuck and then they were unable to proceed with their intended purchase, and then because their cash savings were actually wiped out. So it actually delayed their plans to acquire a second property as well, which is why I always remind my clients, don't focus just on stamp savings. You need a full game plan before making any kind of moves.
With regards to your dream framework, what would you recommend? A 99-year leasehold or a freehold property?
It depends on your goals, because definitely a well-selected leasehold property can definitely perform just as well as a freehold property, or sometimes even better, in the first 10 to 15 years, especially when they typically come in at a lower entry price, which makes them a lot more accessible. Freehold properties, on the other hand, they are better suited for legacy planning, especially for those looking at landed homes as well. So in most cases, I actually guide my clients to focus less on the tenure itself, but more on fundamentals like entry price, layout, location, rentability, as well as future resale demand. These factors actually often have a greater impact on actual returns.
For investment purposes, should we focus on rental or capital appreciation?
For most clients, especially those that are younger or those that are still building their asset base, capital appreciation definitely should be the primary focus. Rental income supports cash flow, but appreciation drives wealth creation. So ideally, you want a property that definitely offers a healthy balance of both with a clear exit strategy in mind, which is exactly what we mapped out in the multiply net worth stage of my dream framework.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I learned a lot from you today, and I know who to call now whenever I'm ready to make that decision.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thank you very much, Kian, for being here with us on the GrowCast show today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Glad to be here.
So that was episode 90 of the GrowCast show with Kian Ang, Senior Associate Director at PropNex, with this very interesting dreams framework strategy.